You're tuned into Glen Talks, your go-to source for the latest conversations and insights in the world of business. I'm your host, Serena Hanschke, and in today's show, we're going to have the privilege of sitting down with a trailblazer in the construction industry, Vanessa Werden.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here to talk about EDI because it is one of the things that I am most passionate about in my personal and professional career. And, I think that we've come a very long way in a relatively short time. I've been a construction lawyer for 12 years. And for a solid 10 of those years, I've been networking with industry, getting involved in different industry associations, meeting all kinds of people and professionals within the industry. And I think it looks quite different now than it did, say, in 2012 or 2013 even. I've seen a lot of change in terms of just the awareness about why diversity and why inclusivity are important, why those are and should be foundational principles of how we operate, I think, as an industry. So I've seen, I feel like because of the involvement I've had in different associations and different groups, I've kind of had a front row seat to the change that's happened over the last decade. It's impressive. And I think there have been some really meaningful, wonderful changes. And I can give some examples of that. But I think there's still some room for improvement. There's still some work to do. And, I'll talk a little bit about how I started the Women in Road Building Committee last year with BC Road Builders, because it is something that I think still deserves a lot of attention from industry, because there is still some work to do. But I think people are starting to recognize that, inclusion, just including women and different underrepresented groups and providing opportunities to those people in our society only makes the industry stronger and better. And it's something that I'm seeing not just women, but men and all sorts of people want to really learn about and understand. So that's, I think, where we are, which is, I think, a really good place to be.
So balancing with your leadership roles that you do have right now and your expertise, what challenges have you encountered yourself as a woman in construction and how have you overcome those?
Oh, wow.
Let's start with the easy topic.
Oh, wow.
We'll throw you right onto the burner here.
Yeah. So I think with challenges, I think coming into the field of construction law, I was recruited in law school by a firm in Vancouver that did complex construction claims and construction-related insurance defense. And coming out of law school, I thought, okay, well, this seems like something that will provide a really good opportunity for my career. I think this area of law is really interesting. And there were some of the top lawyers in the province working at that firm at the time. And so I landed in a really good spot right out of law school. And I hit the ground running. My very first case was a complex stadium construction litigation. It was a BC Place litigation, and I was thrown into the deep end probably doesn't quite capture what was happening in my life at that time. I prior to that, I didn't have any construction background. And so just the learning curve right out of the gate was a bit of a challenge. As a woman, it was immediately apparent that I was going to be 99% of the time the only woman in the courtroom, the only woman around the boardroom table. And I had to sort of I had to make a decision, right? Am I comfortable with that? Am I okay with that? Do I know what I'm getting into here? Can I accept that? And what do I do with that information? And to me, I thought, well, I love this area of law. I'm working with fantastic people who want to build me up, who want to mentor me. Are they men? Yeah, they are. They are absolutely men who have dominated in this area of law, but they want to provide me with the right kinds of training and opportunities. So I thought, what does it matter if I'm the only woman? If I'm capable of learning and I'm capable of doing the job, then I should have a place there. And within the first couple years of my practice is when I really started thinking about, well, what does this mean? And can I use this as a way to be that sort of representative of what's possible as a woman entering a male-dominated profession, a male-dominated industry? Because not only is construction law male-dominated field, but I'm serving an industry that is also very male-dominated. And so that sort of started this fire burning in me of, well, what do I do with that? I think there's a real opportunity here. And so it all kind of grew from there.
Well, I mean, the bonus is for you choosing to go into construction is that it's recession proof, really, because there's always going to be buildings being made. And then if it even is recession, then there's going to be cost overruns. I think you picked the perfect market. That's for sure.
I have remained busy and I think I will. And so, I mean, I'm very grateful to have ended up in the area of law that I did. I mean, I think I'm very proud to serve the construction industry. I've met so many wonderful, ambitious, smart people. And it's just an industry that, is just, not only do I remain busy because there's lots of work to do, which is a great thing, but I deal with fantastic people every day. I'm really lucky in that regard.
That's awesome. And so have you had any hurdles or anything like that you cared to share about? Or I'm sure there's been, a few speed bumps along the way, but.
Sure. I mean, I do think I've always felt like there is I've had the occasional scenario where I walk away thinking that person underestimated me solely on the basis that I am a female. I have definitely felt that way on a number of occasions throughout my career. I think that, there's always this I've always been conscious of that. And I think it has faded a little bit over the course of my 12-year career. And I used to feel it a lot more in my earlier years. But it still happens to me on occasion where I introduce myself to somebody and they assume that either I haven't been a lawyer for very long, or I don't know this, or I don't know that. And I definitely get the sense that it's because I'm a female. And perhaps if that person was speaking to one of my male colleagues, the dynamic would be a little bit different. Yeah. And, when I'm in those scenarios, I think what I tend to do is to say, I've been practicing for 12 years, or, I was lead counsel on this telecom project, and this is what I have experience with. And when you make people sort of aware of the sort of maybe false assumptions that they're making, you find people very quickly, the dynamic changes quite quickly, right? Because if you make people aware of the fact that perhaps you're making some assumptions there that aren't quite accurate, people tend to change their tune pretty quickly.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm not the aide here. Actually, I'm the lead on the file. Yeah, you probably get a lot of people when you go into a room, they probably direct their conversation at if there's like a male aide or something like that you have with you, or someone junior.
It has certainly happened to me. Yeah. I'm not going to say it hasn't. It has certainly happened to me. And I think, that's to me an opportunity to call that out. Mm-hmm. You can do it politely. And I think I've developed ways of doing it politely and professionally, but it's important, I think, when you encounter a scenario like that as a woman, it's important to call it out in a way that just makes that person aware that you see it and you hope they see it, and maybe in the future it won't happen again. Yeah.
Tying back to your, just kind of segueing back to your initial movement into deciding to come into the law field, is that at kind of like activism and standing up for people? Is that kind of what sparked you to get into law?
Not exactly. So I went to school originally to be a paralegal. My mom is a paralegal. And I thought maybe that was a career path for me. And when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I was doing quite well. And one of my professors actually came to me and said, have you thought about maybe writing the LSAT? And I thought about it. And I thought, could I? Should I? And I ended up going to law school. I did well and, got the good grades and all that good stuff and ended up going to law school. Not quite sure when I entered law school where exactly that would take me. I think that I've always sort of been a strong female sort of presence. I mean, my grandmother, my goodness, what a force that woman is. She has been through it in her life and she just perseveres. And my mother had a work ethic that was very similar. And so I think I came from this background of strong female presence and wanting to create sort of make my own way and support myself and be that strong, independent woman. That was sort of the model that I came from. And so when I started practicing, it was really interesting how this intersection came to be between doing well in law school and becoming a construction lawyer and always having that fire in me to be that strong female voice. And so as I started out my career, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be a construction lawyer, I'm going to serve this industry, then I should get to know these people. I should get to know who my clients are. And so I started going to different events with regional construction associations and different industry groups. And as a lawyer, I thought, you know what, I think these are groups for industry, but if they'll open the door, I'm walking through it. So I just started going to all these events. And then I found Canadian Construction Women in about my second year of practice. And I started going to all of their events, got to know some people on their board, and they approached me and said, look, we have an opening on our board. We have the secretary position opening up this year. Are you interested? And I jumped at the opportunity and did not know it would turn into 6 years on that board, 2 years as secretary, 2 years as vice president, and then I served a 2-year term as president. And that association really allowed me to find a place where I could use my voice as a construction lawyer, but serving this industry to really help sort of promote that mission, right? Of not only attracting women into the construction industry, but retaining women in the construction industry, providing women with opportunities to network where in their places of employment, they don't really have the opportunity to connect with very many women. So providing those opportunities for mentorship and networking. And I really found a community of like-minded women who really, we got along and we were on the same mission and we could learn from each other and mentor each other. And it just became something that I was really passionate about. So I spent 6 years on that board. And to me, that's sort of where it all came together. And then in 2021, I passed the president torch because I felt like, well, I'd been on the board for 6 years and I thought time to sort of branch out and look for another opportunity. And so that's when I found Road Builders and joined that board. So
that's awesome. And I think one thing that you probably also passed off to those people that you probably naturally did, but they probably didn't realize, is you probably helped empower them by giving them the opportunities and the resources to kind of have an idea of what their rights are and being able to speak up a little bit more as well.
Yeah. I mean, I did a lot of speaking for that group. And I think, that group, the Canadian Construction Women, that community that is sort of built around that association it's such a wonderful thing. What I'm doing now with Road Builders is quite a bit different. But with Canadian Construction Women, it's really about finding, as a woman in the industry, finding your community, finding your people. And, there are so many moments that when I look back on my involvement over the 6 years on the board, there are so many moments where I thought, what an impactful thing to provide women with opportunities to find a mentor, or to just find a community where you feel like you belong.
Someone that's gone through something similar to your situation, right? To have that representation that there are other women out there. I'm not alone. I don't have to go through the situation myself.
Yeah.
And find somebody else's that you can help come off of their experience as well.
And it's that representation piece. I think that's so critical. I could go on about why representation matters for a long time, but I think it's that representation piece. I think that is so key to not just attracting women, but showing women that there are opportunities for growth and development and career advancement and building a life for yourself, and just having that representation piece. I mean, I think that it's so much easier, I think, to see, for me at least, it's so much easier to see yourself succeeding in an area of life when you can look around and see examples of where and how that's already been done. I mean, that's sometimes career altering stuff. So it's important. It's so important.
So, and then you took a lot of that experience and you brought that over to Road Builders. So I think you kind of answered why Road Builders then. So that's kind of what inspired you to get more active, I think, with BC Road Builders. And then that also pressed you into starting the women's community. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey and what that was like?
Sure. So after I left Canadian Construction Women, I was looking around in industry for other opportunities to connect and give back. And I had a connection with somebody on the BC Road Builders board. So I met with him for a coffee and we chatted about what is Road Builders up to these days and how could I potentially contribute to that organization. So they invited me to join the board, and I held a director position for about 2 years and just provided some female presence on the board. At the time, I was the only woman on the board. Now there are 3 of us, I'm proud to say. But at the time, I was the only woman on the board. And so I think that group was very receptive to that. You know, they were I will say about Road Builders generally, that is a group of very ambitious, smart people, and they understand the importance of the diversity and inclusivity piece for sure. And so I think having my voice at that table was such a welcome addition, and I felt that immediately. So then last year, at the strategic planning session, I said to the board, I have an idea. It's for a new committee. We have a committee structure that helps the organization meet its objectives. And I said, I have an idea for a new committee, Women in Road Building. This is what it would look like, and this is how I think it would work. And I said, these are the kinds of things that I did with Canadian Construction Women, and I think they would that sort of programming and objective would fit really well. And I think there's maybe a bit of a gap we can fill in the Road Builders programming. And it was immediately very well received. Within weeks, I had a fully formed committee, received so many recommendations for outstanding women who wanted to be a part of that initiative. And we were off and running. And so last year, 2023, was the first full year of the committee. And we had 2 major events. And the first event we had at the fall conference, and it was a panel of women leaders in the road building and heavy civil industries who provided conversation and answered questions about their paths, their career paths, and their challenges and their successes and the obstacles, and how industry has received them and how industry has changed in terms of attracting and retaining women and advancing women to leadership positions. So we had a really fantastic dynamic conversation with women who hold leadership positions. And we had a general manager of a contracting company and a superintendent. And it was a way to a couple things. It was, number one, a way to say, look at the representation that already exists in the road building and heavy civil industries. Here they are. These are examples of women who others can look up to. And they're examples of what's possible in these sectors. So it was really about connecting women and also about showing the industry that here's the representation we have. And also, here's why it matters. And so we were also at that event. It was in Kelowna. And so we invited the Women in Trades training program from Okanagan College to come and attend the panel. And we had a networking lunch after with the students. And it was so wonderful to hear the feedback from the students after the networking lunch. And one of the instructors came up to me after the event and said, "These girls are pumped. They are so excited about what's possible in road building and heavy civil." And so that feedback says to me, this kind of work matters and it's making a difference. So that's how I got involved with Women in Road Building. And now we're in our second year and we're planning more events. And I just want to keep the momentum going.
And we were kind of having a little bit of a chat before we came in, and we were talking about one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is what we were discussing is retention. Mm-hmm. So what are some of those issues, particularly speaking to the road building sector, on what are the biggest retention issues that we're seeing in the road building sector today?
That's a tough one. I mean,
long hours is obviously going to be the biggest one, with it being also in the wintertime, things are a little bit more slow. Things are unpredictable. Childcare is incredibly difficult. And it's not just a woman's issue. That's just a people's issue, right?
Yeah. I think I've heard safety, but then I've heard a lot of women say, but the safety standards are so high, and employers take safety so seriously that it's not so much safety anymore. It's more, I hear the childcare issue come up a lot. The hours are certainly a challenge. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I think it is something that industry probably needs to consider if we are serious about retaining people who have families. It is an issue. For me personally, it's hard to, you can't do it all, right? Some people have said to me, "How do you do it all?" And I say, I don't. I have a support system, and I have a spouse who took multiple years off of work to raise babies, and I've been very fortunate in that regard. But you can't do it all on your own. You need a support network, whether that's friends or relatives or childcare that's in place. It's if I didn't have the childcare that I have, I don't know how I would do my job. I don't know how I would do what I do. So, I think it's just finding those resources and trying to make those resources available to people in your community. And I don't have all the answers of how we make that happen, but I certainly think that it's a good start for employers in the construction industry to at least be aware that these are real challenges that have caused, and I think continue to cause, people to consider.
Now, here's a fun one. the washrooms, access to washrooms, particularly in road building, has always been a bit of a challenge. What are you kind of feeling about the new pushes with WorkSafe to try and bring more flush toilets to job sites? How do you feel it has a place? It's definitely much more logistically challenging for road building, but I think they've got a lot of different technology and stuff that's out there now that they didn't have before. But
and it really depends who you talk to. Right? Some people say, yes, this is absolutely the thing to do. We need to do this. I think others are maybe a little reluctant just because there's a lot of questions, I think, around the logistics of some of that and the costs. Sometimes the areas in which these programs or projects are set up, you're talking about very remote locations. You're talking about difficult terrain. You're talking about, there's all kinds of issues to tackle. And so is it always going to be possible? I don't know the answer to that. But I think what I do think is if there's something that an employer can reasonably do to make people feel more comfortable in their place of employment, it's probably a good thing to do.
In the morning when you're getting to the job site, you have to scope out where you're going to use it for the day, share it with the crew.
Right.
Sometimes you're driving quite a distance, and sometimes the demand of the job is that you're going to be there for quite a few hours. So the toll on the body for women, particularly in the road building sector, is quite tough.
Yes.
So I've had to be creative a few times. But obviously, yes, there's the logistical challenges, particularly if you got a crew that's moving multiple times a day. Depends on what the type of work is, sometimes the location. But there's a bit of a health impact that comes with that as well. And I know a lot of women, particularly in the road building and construction or traffic control field, that have had quite a bit of challenges with that. So I consider that, it seems like it's a bit of a poopy subject, but right. But I think definitely needs to be something to be talked about. That is the worst piece of Tupperware that you can imagine. Yeah. July 3rd, 3:00.
Oh my gosh. And I think we've moved past this point of, well, equality means treating everybody the same. Well, it in fact does not. What it means is making sure that everybody has access to the things they need access to do their jobs and be comfortable doing their jobs, right? And so it's the same thing, I think, with, or similar to companies that are starting to recognize that women need different PPE and things like that, right? And this recognition that it's not treating everybody the same. That's no longer the standard. I think there's an understanding that is not. That's
with
not
equality and with equity.
That is what we're asking for, right? And so I think it's really starting to take hold, I think, this understanding of, if I want different kinds of people, if I want to maintain a diverse workforce, then I need to make sure that this diverse workforce has access to all of the facilities or the workwear or whatever it is that they need to do this job.
Can you share a success story with Canadian construction women that kind of comes to mind? Something that really you're proud of, that you were able to move the dial? Or
I think what immediately comes to mind for me is, so I was at this during my presidency term, my time as president. We hosted an event that we had 5 or 6 women speakers, and we had a project manager and a safety superintendent and a women's rights advocate, 5 or 6 speakers from across different sectors. And we had them each do a 10-minute talk on a pivotal moment in their career. Why was it meaningful and how did it propel them forward? And it was a fantastic event. And, a lot of these events over my time with that group, you'd see a lot of the same people, but you'd see a lot of new faces too, which was always great, right? Because you got to know some people really well.
And you're moving the dial a little bit if you're seeing some more people, right? Otherwise, it's just, it's a support group then at that point.
Which is great. So we had this great speaker event, and it was a great success, and everybody thought, man, what an impactful lineup of speakers, and it went off without a hitch. It was great. And so at the end of the event, people are filtering out and saying goodbye, and this woman came up to me and introduced herself. And I had been up and down all night introducing the speakers. And so she kind of sought me out and she said, just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a Syrian refugee and I was a civil engineer in Syria. And I've been in Vancouver for about a month and I've been feeling really lost. And I came here tonight and I didn't expect to find my people. I didn't expect to find a community, but that's exactly what I found. And I am so grateful. And it was just one of these moments where I was kind of speechless and I just said, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you made it. I hope to see you again. And it was just one of those moments where I thought, wow, this matters, right? Talk about adding to the list of the reasons why this matters. And it was just one of those moments that has stayed with me and I think will stay with me forever. And it was just, one of those moments that it really hit me. Like, this is having an impact on people. So that was really cool. That was really amazing.
What advice would you give young women aspiring to enter and succeed in the construction industry? What are a couple of things that you would say to them?
So I think number one is finding a mentor. 1 or 2 or 3 people that will cheer you on, will listen to you when you are uncertain or anxious or nervous about something that you're dealing with, and just be that sounding board, really, and give you advice.
You also need that one that's going to cuff you upside the head every once in a while and
Totally.
hold you accountable.
Totally. I've had 1 or 2 of those in my time. And it's really important, right? And it's just, but it's, I think it's career changing, life changing. If you can find 1 or 2 people that is committed to your success, right? Will build you up and will give you that difficult advice, and just somebody to go to in times where you don't know all the answers and you don't know all the answers. It's a critical piece, I think, of a successful career. And I've been the benefit of it, and I've tried over the years to pay it forward. And it's such an important piece, I think. So that's what immediately comes to mind is find that mentor person. And you don't necessarily need to say, will you be my mentor? I mean, sometimes it looks like that. For me, it has, will you be my mentor? Yeah. But sometimes
or
it's
femtor.
just,
yeah
sure. Right. And to be fair, especially early on in my career, the mentorship that I received was mostly from men, right? And I don't think it, even if you're in a situation where you can't find that female voice or that the voice that you necessarily identify with, that's okay. I received some fantastic mentorship from male leaders in law, and it was invaluable. But sometimes you do need that voice that you identify with. But sometimes it's hard to find. But keep looking for it, right? Find the mentorship that's available to you, but just keep looking for it. Keep making connections, reach out to people, and it will come, I think. But it's been an important piece of my career development, and I've seen the benefits of it with others, and I think it's such a critical piece. It can just help so much with career development.
So looking ahead, what changes or developments would you like to see still in the construction industry regarding gender and diversity and equity and inclusion? Ooh. If it was a perfect world, what does a perfect world look like, and how do we get there?
I often, when I think about this, so I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I have been sort of in this space of connecting women, advocating for women, being a part of that since well before she was born. But I found that since I had a daughter, it just pushed me. It propelled me, I think, even harder and faster into what can I do? Even if I'm just a little tiny piece of this, what can I do? What can we as an industry do? And I sometimes think about my daughter and what she will eventually do with her life. She's 3, so it's going to be a while. But I think the easiest way for me to sort of conceptualize it and wrap my head around it is, what do I want her to walk into when she is deciding? Like I think about if she's graduating from high school and she's trying to figure out what to do with her life. What a dream for it not to even be a question about whether she belongs in a certain field or whether she's going to be comfortable in a certain workplace. Like, what a dream, I think, for her to just not even have that be if someone were to say to her, are you sure you want to go into that field because you might get hazed or you might get bullied or you might not have workwear that fits you properly. And for her to say, what on earth are you talking about? I would like it to be a thing of history. And so I think that's, to me, the way that I think about it. But I think, I think we're getting there, is understanding that diversity can only be a strength of industry, and that different people bring different qualities to the table that can only help us as an industry and as people be better and stronger, and not question, well, can she do this job? Is she strong enough? Is she smart enough? It shouldn't be.
Is she tough enough? Does she have a thick skin? Can she take a joke?
Right.
But the joke doesn't need to be there. The work is the work.
So
Get it done.
I think in my ideal world, in 15 or so years from now, when my daughter is trying to figure out what to do with her life, hopefully we're at a place where it's just about what interests her, what inspires her, what she's good at. And that's the basis for her to make those decisions.
Next, we're going to segue into a rapid fire section.
Okay.
And it's going to be totally fun. I'm going to probably throw some extra ones in there now that I know you have a couple of little kids. You're going to have a little bit of fun with that. Keep it close to like a couple words to a sentence. Okay. And you ready?
Yes.
Go. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl, forced morning person.
What time do you get up?
5.
Ooh. Go-to restaurant for business meetings?
I have to say Coast.
And what do they serve there?
Seafood, sushi,
Ooh.
My thing. Yeah.
Drink of choice at a cafe?
Oh. At a cafe, I have to go with an oat milk latte.
Ooh, okay.
My current thing.
What's the best compliment you ever received?
You are an inspiration.
Oh. When are you the most inspiring? What's your most productive and inspiring part of your day? What's the most productive hour that you usually get the most work done?
7 to 8 a.m.
Okay. Before you get to work.
I'm already there.
I'm
at the desk.
She's a go-getter. I love this. Most inspiring woman in the construction industry, in your opinion?
I'd have to say Tegan Burton with Main Road.
A book or resource that has influenced your perspective or inspired you? Have you read anything recently?
So immediately comes to mind is Darling, You Can't Do Both. That book really had an impact on me.
Awesome. Favorite project you'd worked on that showcased diversity and inclusion?
Favorite project?
Mm-hmm. Is there a special event?
I have to say the first official event of the Women in Road Building Committee, which was Women in Road Building Paving the Way. And we had a fantastic panel, went off without a hitch. I moderated the panel, and I think we came away from that with just stars in our eyes. And it was just one of those moments where I thought, I think we're doing it right. It's going well.
Awesome. And then your go-to activity for blowing off stress.
I will have to say painting.
Vanessa, it's been a pleasure kind of exploring and hearing your journey as you trailblaze for women in construction. Thank you so much for all of your work and getting a lot of this stuff started. It's been awesome getting to know you, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more over the next while. I hope you enjoyed your time on the show.
Oh my goodness,
and
did I ever?
We have a nice gift for you as well. Yeah, and it's very nicely etched. There's a laser design, so now you can never lose your tumbler. Because it will come back to you, aside from putting a GPS tag on it. But
thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak about these issues and to talk about the work that we're doing. And it's just to have platforms like this where we can speak about these issues and what still needs to happen. I mean, what a fantastic thing. So thank you for having me.
That's our show for today. If you like the content that you see, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Share it with your friends and colleagues. We're going to continue to bring you inclusive insights and exclusive experiences. See you next time.